At the school I taught at last, I feel like student reading interest was sometimes underrepresented by current assessments in the school. I believe that having the attitude survey that was within Chapter 7 um, at the beginning of the year would help me to understand my students from the get-go, and then maybe giving that survey halfway through to see if, interests have changed, or just how things may have changed throughout the last few months. And I would use these interests from my students to help them be more interested in reading each week. I could assess their understanding of comprehension through book talks with them and assessments with guided reading books. And so for those guided reading books, I could choose based off interest. So if I have students who are interested in, dirt bikes and different types of cars and stuff, I could try to find books for those guided reading groups that are specific to those interests, as well as books that students could read independently on their level. I could try to find those that are specific to what they like. So if I could find one about dirt bikes for that specific student or a couple of students, that would help them to be more interested in the reading. And then I found a list of 5 different assessment tools that can be used, and I'll add the link to my assignment and to the description of this video. And depending on the reading, I would have students do the different 5. So one of them is making connections. One of them is think, pair, share, summarize the story, draw the story, or make predictions. So I like to have students make predictions when it's like a suspenseful story, or a story where something's happening. We get right to the climax of the story, and I say, okay, close your book, pause. All right, what do we think is going to happen next? And let every student kind of share. And sometimes they might agree. Sometimes they might have, a different answer depending on who they are. But the answers that they come up with are very interesting. And I think it keeps them interested in the reading to see, well, am I right? Is my prediction right? Or was I close? Or was it completely wrong? And then another one I like to use is drawing to summarize the story. So I like to integrate, or I would like to integrate cartoon comics to have students kind of show important parts of the story. So rather than just drawing one big picture that describes the whole story, I would have them draw a couple pictures that kind of tie in all the big parts. So maybe the beginning, the middle, the problem, the solution, the end, or however it would work out. And then one action in Chapter 9 that I would like to include in my teaching is checklists. I think checklists help students to independently create success, which is what the chapter said. That they're on their own. They're making these checks as they're looking at the checklist. They would initiate, they would practice, and they would master these self-assessment routines according to what the chapter had said. And modeling would come into play with this self-assessment strategy, which modeling really is great for students in all things. But this gives examples of what the students need to be looking for as they are working or reading. So I would teach students how to use checklists by having specific ones posted on their desk, or like in the front of their journals, depending on like if it's math, something along the lines that would give them a checklist of, did I add, did I subtract, did I use the equal sign correctly? For my first grade students, I would have a checklist that helps them to see what they need to provide when writing sentences. So on their desk, before I have had CAPS, caps, and that's an example of, like, if they're writing, it's to remember to capitalize, all sentence makes sense, punctuation, and then spelling. And what I would use for reading comprehension would be, and I have like a checklist that I'll post as well. This checklist would be posted around the classroom. Students would have examples of how to find each thing, such as identifying the author's purpose. Well, that can be kind of broad for students. So they would see, posted on the checklist around the room is, under identifying the author's purpose, would say, did the author write the text to inform, entertain, or persuade? And so this would just help them to, daily practice to see it, and that it can break down their thinking. And I would teach them to look for these clues around the room or the checklist posted in their journals or on their desk to help them to understand the questions that are being asked of them, rather than just, here's the question, good luck. Give them some kind of checklist or some visual to help them know exactly what they need to do.